things are a little different this morning. As if you tuned into the Discord, Jonathan had put a message in there. Last week was a little interesting, and this week will be a little interesting as well. Obviously, I'm home. I got home from the hospital on Friday, and I'm not able to go back to work yet. Need to wait till the infection clears in my leg. So until then, Jonathan and I are kind of switching places for a bit. He's taking the boys to school, and then I'm here starting things out and hopefully healing. And hopefully we won't be in this area for long. We'll be back to normal, and yeah, I'll be back to work. It will all be a good thing. So anyway, so we're starting our morning in the Word, and we like to start our day where and I'm already forgot to turn my volume down. So we'll do that real quick so it doesn't mess with things. I'm too late. But yes, we want to start our day in the Word, because whatever grabs our attention first thing in the morning, it's likely what will hold our attention all day, or we'll continue going back to it. So if we can start our day in the Word, then we're able to keep falling back on the Word throughout the day, and maybe when things get a little difficult, instead of losing our temper or becoming anxious, instead we remember God's promises and move forward from there. So according to we followed the Revised Common Lectionary through Vanderbilt University. And there are actually 2 different readings for today. So Jonathan and I talked last night, and he's like, which do you want to do? And I really like the Sermon on the Mount, so I wanted to continue with it. So we will be continuing in Matthew and versus the gospel. Wait, what is it? I need to find it again. But today is actually the day of the presentation of the Lord. What that is Jonathan's not here, and I'm not 100%, so you'll have to bear with me. But the presentation of the Lord is 40 days after Christmas, and this year it falls on February 2nd. And this is when Mary and Joseph took Jesus to the temple to be presented to the Lord. And there he was acknowledged as the Messiah. And the reading, I believe, is in Luke. And it is I'm trying to read here. Luke 2:22 through 40. Michael got on a little early on Discord, and we were talking about that. And that is the story of when Mary and Joseph took Jesus to the temple. And so absolutely you could read that for today, because this is the day of the presentation of the Lord. But like I said, I wanted to continue with the Sermon on the Mount, because that's one of one of my favorite lessons in the Bible. I tend to say that a lot. That's my favorite thing in the Bible. My favorite, because there's so many favorite things, and we don't have to limit ourselves to one character or one story. But I believe this is a good foundation for Jesus's teachings, and it helps us stay focused and truly understand his teachings and how we are to live his life according to the Bible, and it figures in the law and what we need to do from there. I'm going to try not to get into that too much because it's in today's reading. But like I said, I actually did an entire class on the Sermon on the Mount for my schooling. And one of the books is actually called The Sermon on the Mount. It's by A Beginner's Guide to the Kingdom of Heaven. It's Amy Jill Levine. And I actually took this book and we did a study on it at church. And at first, I gotta say my class revolted because it is something that you have to study. And typically when books are written, they're written closer to like an 8th grade level where it's easier for people to understand. And this one was a higher level, so it had them stretching a bit. But because they love me and they trust me, they stuck with it. And after a couple of weeks, they realized, the language is a little difficult at times, but it's got a lot of good information. And by the end of the class, they actually really enjoyed really enjoyed the book. And some of them were even going to go back to the beginning and start over again. But if you maybe try not to judge a book by its cover, so to speak, and keep an open mind. And that's of a lot of things. That was one of the biggest lessons my class learned that day. Was things may be difficult, but sometimes they're worth it. And when we're talking about Jesus, he's always worth it. So I'm kind of trying to stall a bit here because, like I said, Jonathan took the boys to school today, and he should be back about any minute. So I'm going a little slow, and we'll see where that gets us. So, good morning. Michael, looks like he was on here chatting quite a bit. If you want to go back and see what we missed on Wednesday and Thursday, I believe, when we didn't go live, he's got a little bit of a synopsis there. And we'll see how that goes. I'm sorry. So, how are things going for you all? Did you have a good weekend? It looks like it's snowing again here. But, as for that, I've not been allowed out of the house, so I don't really know much of what's going on, apart from my bed and the couch. That's about as far as I go. One thing with the injury to my leg, I don't even know what happened. I really had no symptoms, and then it was serious. So, I have to keep my leg elevated until it heals completely. And though there's no surface injuries, there is still infection, and I've got the redness and swelling and heat and the whole 9 yards. But we are getting through it and taking it day by day, and doing what I'm told and keeping my leg up and not doing anything, which is getting harder and harder. But but I definitely don't want to end up back in the hospital, so I will do whatever needs to be done. I do need to answer a message here real quick, because though I'm not at work, I am still kind of remote, so I'm trying to do both. And once again, I'm stalling for Jonathan, and Bradley's here. And good morning, Bradley. You're going to talk about Micah, which is one that we missed while we were gone. I think Micah is it's one of the books that's often left out, and I think there's got a lot of good information in there. And it's kind of fun to say. I like to say it, Micah. It's like Habakkuk. That's my favorite one to say. But anyway, so today, like I said, we're not going to be doing the presentation of the Lord reading, which is one of the readings on the Revised Common Lectionary. And I'm going to assume that Jonathan will be here about any minute, but we're already about 8:15. And Christy, good to see you. I appreciate the prayers. Like I said, I do still have a long road to go, but I've come a long way. And according to Gideon, they didn't do anything while they were there. But it's hard for the little guy to understand that, there's certain antibiotics that you can only take through an IV in the hospital. And he doesn't understand how important that time was. All he knew is that his mommy wasn't here with him, and she wasn't better when she got home. So, and Bradley, I'll tell you, Habakkuk, I didn't know how to say for a long time, but once I did, it's kind of fun for me to say now. But Jonathan made it. And he's got to get his coat off. And
I've been watching on live for some reason. I can't. It won't let me see the chat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it won't come up.
And is this the... Where's the thing?
What thing?
The microphone.
I got the mic.
Oh, well, I'm going to stop looking for it because...
The receiver's already on. I just got to turn the microphone on.
Okay. Jonathan was making things easier, and I'm just trying to make them hard again.
Yeah, you usually do.
Hey, be nice. I was explaining while you were watching. I was doing a lot of rambling is what I was doing.
Yeah, I was trying to watch, but yeah.
So, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm going to switch accounts real quick on my phone, but...
Okay. You want mine?
Nah, I'll just use mine. Give me a second.
Okay, so we're going to get into the reading. I haven't moved this yet. Oh, I don't have that to put there. Okay, so today's reading is Matthew 5:13 through 20. And I'm going to be reading through in the New International Version. Are you ready, my love? Or do you still need a minute?
Hang on, let me put my phone on New International Version and take yours, because I have to actually log out of Google on my phone to change account on my... So here. And then I'll watch the live from your phone.
Okay, I'm not logged into it. Okay, so Jonathan's looks different, so. Okay, this is titled Salt and Light, starting in 13. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything, except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. And then the fulfillment of the law. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen, will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. Okay. Any thoughts before we get started, my love?
No. Just trying to catch up.
Okay. Okay. So, excuse me. Salt is used a lot in the Bible because it was very important in that time period. And, we have so many salt replacements or whatever now, but it was more than just a seasoning. Then it was, it could be used as a currency.
Yeah, we don't really understand the importance of salt in the ancient world. I mean, it was one of the few things that you could preserve food with. Mm-hmm. I mean, you really only had three ways to preserve food. You could dry it, you could salt it, or you could ferment it. Without those three things, there was no surviving in the off season. And some things could only be salted, like meat. Mm-hmm. One of the most important things you can eat, the only way to preserve it was with salt. And then I think Christ he alludes to that as, us being a preservative to the world, putting ourselves out there like that. But, you talk about how important it was and how precious it was. Everyone would have a salt box in their house. Think of something about the size of a milk crate or maybe a little bigger. And salt could be used as currency. Sometimes the Roman soldiers were paid with salt. The line of, is this person worth their salt, or you ain't worth your salt, comes from the fact that sometimes soldiers were paid with salt. Also, on the darker side of it, when armies would invade places, if you really wanted to hurt the population, if you really wanted to destroy the places you were taking over, one of the things the armies would do was either take or dump out all of the people's salt, because it would hurt their food supply, their ability to survive in the off seasons. But you kept your salt was precious. And he talks about the salt losing its saltiness. I think probably the only thing, in nowadays, modern times, our sodium chloride salt is pretty pure. And we use salt from the sea. They didn't get their salt from the sea through evaporation and distillation, things like we do. They got their salt from salt marshes and salt mines. If you've ever had something like one of those Himalayan salt lamps, they always have labels on them that say "Do not eat non-edible salt," because there's so many other impurities in there. Their salt would be the same. If you didn't use your salt, if you didn't, if you just tried to hoard and hide your salt like you would a pile of gold, just the air and the moisture in the air would actually take the salt out. The salt would evaporate and leach out of your salt box, and you would be left with all these granules of minerals that were absolutely no good for preserving. You had to put your salt out there. It was a precious commodity, but it was also an expendable commodity. And once, if you tried to hide it, if you tried to keep it hidden, if you did not use it, if you just tried to hoard it and hide it, it would become useless. And that's where he talks about it being dumped out on the ground, and because that's the only thing you could do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the Bible mentions the salt more than once, more
Yeah,
than
it's
just
multiple
Jesus
times.
here. But I don't think, because we've never experienced it in that way, I don't think we can truly understand the importance of salt. It's
Mm-hmm.
just one of those things that's hard for us to comprehend. Because for us, it's actually, we use it as a preservative in some ways, but for us, it's usually salt is a bad thing. Salt, everybody's got hypertension because they put too much salt in the foods and things. We see it as a bad thing. They saw it as a very precious commodity, but also much you can tie into Jesus' message. It's not just a precious commodity to hoard. It's something that has to be used,
Mm-hmm.
or it goes to waste.
And also, you talk about it being in a milk crate or whatever, which obviously they
Salt
didn't have
box.
milk crates, but they had a pouch that they carried with them.
Oh yes,
So
yes,
they
very
always
much.
had their salt with them.
Because when you make a
And
covenant with someone,
right, salt was used to make a covenant with another person because you can't take back that salt.
when you made a covenant, when you made a promise, each of you took a pinch of salt out of your salt bag and put it in the other person's salt bag. And the only way to break that covenant was an agreement that you would pull your granules of salt back out of their salt bag.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so impossible, So
Which is one thing we did a while back at our church, and it was very meaningful. And I think that's what made it a little bit more hurtful when people started leaving. But we had a salt ceremony where everyone had their salt, and obviously we didn't have pouches and used our own
packets.
We had salt packets.
Yeah, we brought salt packets.
And we had a jar that was our community jar, and everyone poured their salt into this jar to show their commitment to the church and to each other, and ultimately to Jesus.
And we all made that.
We all made that covenant to be one.
And if we were to break that covenant, we had to pull our own granules of salt back out of the jar.
Right.
An impossibility. Yeah.
Right. So it was, it's a good image to help understand something. Because you say, I'm going to make this covenant with you, but when you put salt granules to it and say, I will only break it if I break it, I will take out my own salt granules, and you look at them and say, that's impossible. And that's like our promise. We're not going to break this. It's an impossibility.
And Michael brings up another point with salt, the salting of Carthage, and no crops would grow where you salted the earth.
Mm-hmm.
But talking about the salt of the earth, if you wanted to make a place more fertile, you could leach the salt out of the ground and be able to grow crops. That was another way to get salt, not as common, but a whole different story. That's where they learned to make gunpowder, but by leaching salt out of dirt.
And Michael's the saying, I say this with a pinch of salt. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's where that comes from. It's not a flippant response. It's a response with deep meaning and thought behind it. Okay, going into 14. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. So that's one thing I say a lot. It's kind of become something that I don't say it, like I said, flippantly. I truly mean it, is we are to be God's light in this world. And here Jesus is telling us that's what we are. We're to bring his light into this world, to shine it into the dark places. And our light can't be hidden. Just like a town that's up on high on the hill. You can't not see the town.
You can't not focus on it, especially if you're in the darkness and you see that hill up there. With us being the light of the world, I mean that's exactly what we mean when we talk about being the embodiment of Christ. We receive light from him, and he is the lamp into our feet and the light into our path. But that light is not intended for us to keep.
Right.
We hold on to it, but we shine it out to the rest of the world. We provide that light. We allow that light, his light, to shine through us into the world. We become the lamp.
And we sustain the lamp by sustaining ourselves and filling ourselves with God's word and love so that we can share that. Because if we don't fill ourselves and study, like we're doing now, diving deep into the word, just putting that word in our heart, our light won't be as bright if we don't have it. And we need that light to be as bright as possible. And the world needs the light. And we have to make sure that we're staying strong and like these studies, they're good. Iron sharpens iron. That's one of my favorite phrases. If you're talking about the scripture with someone else, you can see different perspectives and see things that maybe you wouldn't have seen on your own. But even studying it on your own, God brings things to light to you and helps you understand them better. And because you can read the same verse over and over and over and then get something different out of it every time. That's why it's the living word. It changes based on what God wants us to see right then.
You talk about we looking for ways to make our light shine more, and kind of tie that in with a city on a hill. The reason that a city on a hill shines so bright, and the reason we see it and we focus it, is the same. And how you think about, how do you make a light shine brighter? How do you make, or not necessarily brighter, but take the same light and make it spread further for more people? You lift it up. We constantly looking for ways to, I guess it kind of goes with that those steps that we take that make from one glory to the next, from glory to glory, getting ourselves closer and closer to righteousness, closer and closer to his kingdom, finding ways to climb higher and higher so that our light shines further and further. You think about, like, when, again, this is something we don't have to deal with often because we got electricity and light bulbs everywhere. But when the power goes out, you take a single little flashlight and you sit it on the floor in the middle of the room, you're going to see some stuff. You put it up on the table, it shines through more of the room. You hang a lantern from a hook on the ceiling, and it really shines out brighter.
It's like the hook in the tent. You hang the lantern on the hook at the top of the tent, and it shines and
fills the entire tent.
Well, you're about to get into the next one, so.
What?
15. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Your phone isn't like mine.
I like, in 16, I like how the Amplified kind of expands it. It says, let your light shine before men in such a way that they may see your good deeds and moral excellence and recognize and honor and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Because that's the whole point of it. You know, we often...
Oh, I like that, Bradley. Light doesn't argue with darkness, it simply shines.
Yes. But something we hear quite often, you know, this person, especially depending on what circles and I guess denominations that you grew up around, and I hear it from grandma being very Pentecostal, it's something common to them. This person has the anointing, you can tell by how well they sing, and this person, and just the way they preach, and it often bothers me when I hear that over and over and over, especially about the same person or the same people, and you get many people talking about the same person the same way. It starts to be like they're idolizing that person because of God in them, and they start turning the focus away from God in them. The entire reason for us to be the embodiment of Christ within our communities is not so that people look at us and he is a good Christian and he is spreading the word and he is just really anointed and he is full of... No, it's God is amazing in our community, you know.
Look at God through him. You can see God through him. Who cares
about me, this dumb hillbilly that gets on YouTube? No. When I want people to come and join our Bible study, I want them to see Jesus. You don't have to see me on the screen. It's
well,
see,
they can't.
that you can't today. But it's to see Jesus. It's to glorify him. Never... And baby's got to put her input in. That cat. I lost my train of thought.
I know, she does that.
But you take these two things that we've been talking about. Hey, you go somewhere else.
Baby's going in kitty jail.
She ran.
But like it says, we don't hide the light. We don't, if you have a lamp, you don't put it under a bowl, because what's the point in closing off the light? You want to shine it so you can see.
And in that, the light and salt go hand in hand. If you try to hoard and hide your salt, it goes to waste. If you try to hide your light, it goes to waste. And in both of these things, they go hand in hand with Christ telling us, you can't just be a lone Christian all your life, I guess. You are meant to be used for him. You are meant to be out there for him. You are meant to be in the community for him. The world is rotting and decaying. You are to be the salt, the preservative for the world. And even, looking at salt as a flavoring, you spread that flavor. You put a pinch of salt, a little bit of salt in a pot of soup. You can start to taste that little bit of salt in every spoonful. You become the... I'm trying to think of how I would even say it, but, as a flavoring, I almost want to say infectious, but that has nothing to do with salt. But you know how your love becomes infectious and it spreads throughout the entire community. But
it makes it better, because, that's one thing. Salt, if you have an unsalted dish, It's very bland and boring. But when you add just a little bit of salt, then it livens up the food and it awakens your taste buds, and you can actually taste the different flavors better than you could when there wasn't any salt. And so that's kind of my thoughts here. It just kind of came to me that your salt helps awaken other parts in people as well.
That's kind of what I was thinking with, couldn't find the words, but thinking infectious or so. But yeah, the salt and the light go hand in hand in that with, the world is decaying, the world needs that preservative, but also the world is in darkness, the world needs your light. And neither one of those things are to be hidden. We can't be a loner. We can't lock up our salt box in certain company. We can't put a shade over our light and only bring it out when we're at church around among Christians we know, you know, and then hide it again when we're with our friends. And we all tend to do that. We hide him, you know, when you're at work among your work friends, or when you're among the people you grew up with, or when you're at a family gathering. If most of your family isn't Christian, you tend to hide your lamp and lock up your salt box, and because that is precious to you and you treat it that way. And Christ is telling us, no, it needs to be used. It needs to be out there. The very people that you lock your salt box up because you don't want them to get into your salt or steal or spoil your salt, those very people are the ones who need a pinch of your salt. The very people that you hide your lamp from, those are the people who need that light. They're in a darkness that maybe his light shining through you is the only way, is the only light that's going to chase that darkness away from them. Maybe the light that they hear on the radio, if they listen to Christian radio and watch Christian TV, and the light really isn't reaching them. If you're hiding your light around them and being more worldly, and just cursing and partying and talking about sex and everything else and immorality and just being part of the world, then your light's never going to reach them, and maybe, just maybe, your light is the only one that would reach them. I think.
And we're made to be different. We're not supposed to blend in. We're supposed to stand out. Be weird.
Be weird.
And for the record, Bradley, she's not mad. She's still in heat, and there are like 4 male cats surrounding the house.
They circle the house.
Yeah.
They know she's in here.
It's not pleasant.
She has been continuously in heat it'll stop for a few days, but it just keeps coming back.
Someone's going to lose their mind. Not sure who it's going to be first, but someone
Me.
here. I don't know.
I've lost so much sleep from that cat coming in and screaming in the middle of the night.
Okay, moving on to 17. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. And that's one thing. That was the biggest crime, basically, that they were being charged with, is that he was saying that the law was not important. And nowhere, I'm kind of curious where they even get that.
They made a lot of stuff up.
Literally, he backs everything he does is the fulfillment of prophecy.
Right.
And the prophets of old were saying, hey, the Messiah is going to come, he's going to do this, this, and this. And then the Messiah comes and he does this, this, and this. So for them to say he's saying the law is not important, he's saying, let's take a look at the law and let me explain it to you, because obviously you don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, this is where I often say, and I know some people don't like it. I don't know about the people that join our chat and watch our watch our Bible study, but I've said it to them many times. Well, Jesus didn't come and preach anything new.
Mm-hmm.
He came and preached exactly what had been in the Word for thousands of years. He, there was some new things in it, and there was some fulfillment in it, but he came and said, hey, all these things. He reinterpreted it in a way that they would understand, because they took their own interpretations and twisted and turned and put God in a box and decided how the Messiah was going to be and how God was going to be, and they laid it down. Even in their law, the legalists. He specifically mentions the scribes and the Pharisees and their righteousness, and in these later verses here. The legalists and their 600 and some whatever laws, much of that was very much misinterpreted. So really, in most of Jesus' preaching, what he did, I'm just reinterpreting what you have been told all this time. I'm reinterpreting what was written. He specifically talks about what was written. And what is it? One in the King James version, or the older versions, they'll say something about a dot, or not one dot, or title is to be changed.
For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen, will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished.
Yeah, but
that's
not one jot or one title. A jot and a title are actually specific marks in writing. They're saying not even the law that was written.
Probably a tittle.
The word that was written, it could be tittle. It's something in the Hebrew letters.
Yeah,
the way
that's
written,
why I said
tittle. The very word that was written it's no different today than it was in studying all your life and the 100 generations before you that studied it. I'm just telling you, I'm enlightening to you that. I'm not coming to change all that, to upend all that. He came to upend the church, and not the church, but the temple, and the way it was being run, and the religious leadership, and the very interpreting, the way they interpreted it to their own good and their own power, their own proof texting. And
well, we can just go back even at the beginning of this reading, the salt of the earth, because we don't truly understand what he's talking about, because salt isn't the same now as it was then. So even in that time period, he was explaining things because enough time had gone by that they weren't completely understanding anymore. And he's like, okay, look, that's not what's written here. We need to look at this. It says A, not B. I'm not even for sure where you got B, but we need to come back over here and look at it, because A is what we're talking about. And that's also why they talk about his yoke being light, because the yoke is what the rabbi would teach. And so many of these other rabbis had these additional teachings that they yoked their young learners with, and it was so difficult for them to understand, mainly because it didn't actually pertain to the Bible. And Jesus is saying, look, we're just going to follow the Bible here, and all this other nonsense, we're just going to get rid of it, because it doesn't fit. And that's why he was such a table turner, so to speak, even though he did toss the tables. But because he was saying, you don't need to add things to it. You just need to understand what's there. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to fulfill this prophecy that you should have known about. Because honestly, if everyone had been studying the Bible like they proclaimed to be doing, there would be no question that when Jesus came, that he was the Messiah.
There would be no question that he was the Messiah. There was
zero question, because he literally fulfilled the prophecies to the letter. There wasn't even any fudging at all. There wasn't any gray area. The prophet said this was going to happen, and this is what happened. So that's why the Pharisees fought so hard, because their teachings were being thrown out. And it had nothing to do with the law.
And
it was their version of the law.
Over several hundred years, it just got twisted more and more and more. It's like it's just like, generations of politicians where they just keep adding laws and adding laws, and everybody that gets voted in has got to have their name on something, so they make new rules and new taxes and this and that. Pharisees would do the same thing, and they twist and turn the rules and the laws over and over again till it got to the point. I mean, they're preaching that God hates everyone that's not a Jew. And it's like, you can go back into even Exodus, and I think maybe even Genesis, where God first says He's the God of all people, and He says it many times, and even the prophets say that He's come for the Jews and the Gentiles, and to redeem the sin of the world, not just the sin of the Jews. But they taught, it got so bad, over all these generations, that they were teaching stuff. They were teaching the people that the Bible says this and this and this, or the Word, the law and the prophets is. He says it as the law and the prophets, because that's one thing they mention. That's one way that they would refer to what we know of as the Old Testament. Okay. The title for it was the law and the prophets.
Michael's jumping to 20 because he wants to know how we deal with verse 20. And we're actually getting there, Michael. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. So the teachers of the law is what we're talking about. It's the ones that weren't necessarily teaching the actual teachings of the law. They were teaching their versions of the law.
And the difference is like when you look at the Pharisees and the scribes, it's more, their righteousness is more of a self-righteous. It is more of a
self-inflating.
Yes. Look at me. I am the most righteous among you. I am. And what Christ is saying, you have to go beyond self-righteous, because you can't be righteous. You can't even earn that righteousness. You can come close to righteousness through Him, but to get beyond that self-righteousness, it's be the salt, be the light, shine to everyone to lift them up, shine on everyone so that they see God and not see how good Melinda is at hosting a Bible study, but they see God in that Bible study. That's how you elevate and become more righteous than the scribes and the Pharisees. For them, it was all about themselves, all about their own power, all about how righteous they were, how good they were.
And when you have a good leader, it comes naturally. You will see, and you can very, very quickly look and see, is what this leader doing something to lift themselves up, or are they trying to improve the group and lift them up from where they were and point them to Jesus. You can put it leaders all across the board, but we're talking about specifically religious leaders here, so we'll just go with that. But you're looking and saying, is what my pastor doing, is that for them, or are they doing it for our church? And I can tell you, the more I get into my calling, the more my heart aches for the people that are lost. And I can tell you, our staff, we all have the same goal. We want to get as many people as we can to heaven. Does that have anything to do with us? Absolutely not. Nope. We are just the vessel that God is using, and He gives us the talents and gifts to share with those people, and that's our goal. We don't. I would prefer not to be up in the middle of everything. An introvert, and the more I do this, the more I find that a lot of leaders, especially Christian leaders, are introverts, and they would just as soon be behind the scenes.
You don't want to be on that camera right there.
Be behind the scenes, letting someone else be that star or whatever, that person in front of everything. But we'll also be the first ones to jump up and say, "I'll do it. I'll be the one. I'll talk. I'll pray. Whatever you need, I'm here." But
And these very things, and even talking about the difference between the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees and the righteousness through Christ, is very much the very reason that our church is doing this, taking a look at everything, kind of auditing ourselves. Is the very reason for this 2026 Seek Him First challenge cards that we have. It's taking a look at everything we are doing, and it's, are we just doing the things? Are we just checking all the marks to say we're doing it? Are we really putting this piece of our church out there for God? Is this really necessary? Or are we doing things trying to lift ourselves up? Yeah. And I really don't think our church is going to find a whole lot of things that says we're doing this just for ourselves, for our own personal power and personal interest. But we are still
and it's
kind of auditing it all. Just
it's
to
more,
take a look.
is this thing being fruitful?
Yeah.
And is this helping or not? And but that's one thing I've experienced this week. We haven't even talked much about it because I'm an invalid and you've been so busy. But it's interesting that we've taken this time for reflection, because that's one thing I've had to do this week. It's not been pleasant. I've not, basically everything I cared about, and I'm not talking about love, like my family and whatnot, but anything that was at my attention was gone. I couldn't focus, and I can tell you, when I came home, I was so confused. I had trouble telling the difference between dream and reality, and that was scary to me. And I can tell you that at that point, I just cried out, and I'm like, God, help me. I can't handle this. And I went to bed that night, and I woke up with a clear mind and feeling better than I have in months. And I've actually been able to study and actually comprehend the things that I've been studying, and it's just been a wake-up call for me, and I wouldn't suggest it to anyone. Definitely not the way to go. So if you could maybe figure that out without a blood infection, that would be the preferred method. But
I mean, some of us, we gotta learn the hard way.
That must be part of it, because this is not the first time I've had sepsis. So God is saying, stop. You gotta, and He knows that. So I keep pushing, and I mean, I try to do my Sabbath, and but I'm not so good at putting myself first, and it's not necessarily in a non-selfish manner. It's more, I need to be selfish in this way, because if I'm not putting myself first, and by that I mean I'm not allowing myself the study time with God that I need. Putting myself first to me means allowing my alone time with God. And that's something I've definitely, the busier I get, that's the thing that goes first. And that's definitely not the way it should be. And so this was my wake-up call. And I guess my confession here to everyone. I've had to look at my priorities differently.
Michael's getting your attention. He tagged you.
So, Michael says, you just spoke on not doing things for ourselves. My son and niece needed to explain in religious studies why we believe what we believe. No wrong answers, just justify. It made me think, but really, what did Jesus get out of his life? Nothing but hardship. He could have had comfort. What other son of a God does that? None. Exactly. And and that's why I talk about the importance of why. There is power in why. And if you can't answer that question, you need to dive deep and figure out why you can't answer that question. And you need to study until you can answer that question. And that's a lot of what our truck conversations are. Hopefully you'll be able to have some truck conversations.
They have been quiet.
Have you been doing the Bible study or the verse of the day?
I don't know where you get your verse of the day.
Version. Okay.
They have.
I'll teach Jonathan the ways of the. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they've been weirdly quiet anytime they've been in the truck with me, but I kind of chalk that up to Mommy's going through a hard time.
Yeah.
They've been very different since the day we put you in the hospital, let alone coming home and experiencing it. Mommy can't just get off the couch and help me do things, and it's weighing on them.
And well. Actually, when you were helping Lee on Saturday, we had conversations that day. How did you get them to be quiet in the car? It is a Jonathan thing, Bradley. I have no idea how he does it. They are never quiet in the car for me.
we play the 3-2-1 shut up game. We used to. I don't have to play that anymore.
But Michael said Porter just got tisked for not reading the verse of the day.
I know. Yeah, I'm in trouble.
But I did set them down on Saturday individually because Gideon and Caleb were at each other's throats. So I sent Caleb out to go check on Grandma. And I sat and talked with Gideon. And we had a long conversation about feelings and how I understand that he's going through something, but he has to be willing to talk about those things. And I asked questions and I got down to it and made all of them tell me that they were struggling. And, that's the first part of it. Caleb especially, I just found out that, and it's something I'm going to have to talk with the parents in his class because it's something we need to address. When these kids are going through something, they don't tell each other. And they're all very close. But somehow it has become normal for them to not tell each other when they're struggling. And I was like, Caleb, because he didn't tell anybody that I was in the hospital. I was like, you need to learn to share the burden. And that's something we all need to do. And what we do here with our prayer requests, we share the burden. By sharing what is burdening you with others around you, they can take part of that burden from you. And when they start praying for you, that puts you in a different place because you're able to find healing by sharing with others. Because if you keep that bottled in, it's just going to grow and fester. And to know that the class as a whole is doing it is a little saddening. Because, teenagers, that's a hard time. And they're all struggling, oddly enough, in very similar areas. And if they'd just talk about it, they'd know they weren't alone. But they're not talking about it. So we're definitely going to have to figure out ways that we can help them open up to each other and share. Because I know I can't bear my burdens alone. And, you all helped tremendously this last week. You prayed when I couldn't pray, and you prayed for things that I wasn't able to pray for, or that I even thought of praying for. And that's how it works, because we all come from different areas. And we can see weaknesses in other people better than we can see weaknesses in ourselves sometimes. Is that you poking, saying you want to say something?
Yeah, just whenever you get pause.
Okay. Well, I lost my thought, so I guess that's now.
I was just going to say, that's what you're talking about now. That's very much why each and every one of us needs to shine our light to the world. We can't say, well, my pastor does a really good job of spreading the light to the church, so I don't need to do so much. I can just sit back and watch and stay off to the side or in the back. Because sometimes somebody's light dims a little bit. You got stuff going on, you're hurt physically, you're in the hospital, this and that. But if each and every one of us are shining our light to the world in the way and being Christ in the way Christ wants us to be, then when somebody's light dims a little bit, the others brighten them up. You receive, you get the opportunity to receive some of that light. Like I said, we receive it and we emit it. And it's very much along those lines where we lift each other up. We have this special brotherly love for each other. We lift each other up to the point that no one is able to look down on anyone else. Mm-hmm. We don't put ourselves on a higher plane like the Pharisees did, and we don't let anyone stay on a lower plane. We all continue to shine our light to each other to make up for those times when somebody dims a little bit, somebody struggles a little bit. Okay, you're struggling. Let me open up for a little while,
And both Michael and Bradley's talking about how that's not normal behavior. And it's not. It's not normal to make yourself vulnerable to someone else. And it's something that you have to choose to do. And as Christians, it's more so important because we have a shared relationship. And we know what we need to do to correct this thing is to bring it before God. Because time after time, Jesus talks about the light all the time. And when you bring something from the darkness into the light, it changes. I mean, that's part of like the law that it talked about what to do with mold. You bring the mold into the light and it kills it. And that's part of what we're doing. You take this thing that's huge for you, and you bring it out into the light and you talk about it and you realize, this thing really isn't that big. And I mean, maybe it is still big, but we can manage this. And now you've got people with you saying, hey, we're going to be here with you. And you might even have someone next to you saying, man, I'm going through that same thing too. And that's where I am with them, because I know they are. They're all struggling in very similar areas. And you just have to be brave and say, hey, this is what I'm going through right now. And it just opens that door for others as well. Because maybe the thing you're going through isn't that big of a deal for you. It's just like, man, I'm just struggling right now. And you bring it up, and then the person across from you is dealing with this thing that is way heavier than any of you could have imagined. And yeah, kind of had a squirrel and like took off with it.
Hey, that's the best way to do it.
So, what would you like to add here? Because my leg is just about done.
I really don't think there's much I need to add.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll be involved in the next portion of Matthew, because I have a lot to say about it as well.
I think it's going to be about 2 weeks before we do it.
Anyway,
We get on, according to the lectionary, we get on something else next week, and then we pick up where we left off in the Sermon on the Mount the week after.
okay. Well, like I told you early in the chat, this book, Sermon on the Mount, is it's kind of eye opening, and it's a good study if you want to get into it. It's not one that goes against the Bible. It aligns with it and brings out Scripture and helps you look at it a little deeper.
But
So,
no, again, just today's passage, today's scripture, this part of the Sermon on the Mount. Just keep in mind the salt is a preservative. The light chases away the darkness. The world needs both, and we are given both through Christ. And we are given both with intention for us not to hide it. If we hide either one, it goes to waste.
so don't keep your light to yourselves. Shine it everywhere you go, and be good to each other. So now that it's 9:07, we're going to end here. So Jonathan can go check on Grandma, and I can get my leg up higher than what it is now. And yeah, so we will be back
You
tomorrow.
Gotta take your medicine too.
Yes, I do still have to take my medicine.
I keep tabs on it.
Tomorrow we're going to be in Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 2, verses 1 through 12. And looks like an optional 13 through 16. So.
Okay, so we'll do through 16. I think that picks up, because we were in 1 Corinthians 1 for about 3 weeks, so that one's pretty much picking up where we left off as well.
So, it was great to have you all here today. Sorry I didn't follow along with the chat too well, but it's always good to see you. And God willing, we'll be back tomorrow. And until then, as Bradley says, go do Jesus things. And I'm going to say, when in doubt, love. And even if you're not in doubt, love anyway. And we'll see you tomorrow. I love you all.